I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media and the Crypto Coin Show. And today on Blockchain Interviews, we have Colin Pape, the founder and CEO of Presearch. Colin, welcome to the show, and thanks for taking the time to come on.
Hey, Addison, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'm excited to dive into the world of privacy-focused, decentralized search engines. I think it's a huge necessity moving forward, especially in the world that we are living in right now. And I'm excited to learn what your team is working on. But first of all, I would love for you to kick off our conversation with just an overview of Presearch and some of those solutions that your team has developed.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, so we're building a decentralized search engine. It's a community-driven project, so not venture capital backed, no ties to Silicon Valley, kind of all your traditional trappings. I think of other search players, and we're really just trying to build a search engine that is by the people for the people, one that provides them with a way to search privately and to kind of participate in the ecosystem more actively than as just a user, basically. So we reward people with Presearch tokens when they run their searches through the platform. And we also power the infrastructure of the system with user nodes. We've got a test net that we're currently running and a main net that's going live a little later this year. We've currently got about 12,000 user nodes that are on the test net. And we reward those infrastructure providers with Presearch tokens as well. And then to create demand on the other side of the equation, we have a platform that we've developed that uses something called keyword staking. And so unlike a traditional advertising platform where it's, denominated in US dollars or, local fiat currency, and it's auction-based cost per click, we essentially have no real cost per click. At some point, that is probably going to be a thing, but for kind of the foreseeable future, it's really just about staking. So you choose whichever keyword you want your ads to show up under, and you stake your tokens to that keyword. Whoever stakes the most has their ad displayed. But just like with regular staking, if you cancel your ad, then the tokens are returned to your account. So there's really no actual cost. So that's kind of how the model works. And yeah, vision is just building search is super critical to the future and freedom of the internet. We've got massive centralization happening. 92% of all searches run through Google. Second biggest search engine is basically YouTube, another Google property. And so, trying to just provide an alternative that isn't, kind of in bed with all the existing, powers that be, like Google appears to be. So,
Definitely. Yeah, I agree, Colin, and great background there. And I didn't know it was still 92%. I would think, we're living in the blockchain world and we think everyone thinks like us. But unfortunately, they still just use the default, and they're probably using Internet Explorer as well or something like that.
yep.
But, and the advertising model you mentioned there, that's really interesting where you're staking. And I think that could be something that could gain a lot of traction. But I want to take a step back just to the general search engine to start. And I think most people that aren't tech savvy, they don't really understand how search engines work. And you don't necessarily need to, but they can work. A decentralized search engine is going to work differently than a centralized one. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit more on, what's the difference between a regular person using Google as a search engine and then something like DuckDuckGo as a search engine and then using Presearch.
Sure. Yeah. So there's kind of various stages to the project. So right now, you could think of it as it's almost more of a meta search engine, and it's enabling us to leverage existing indexes while we build our own on top of it to replace it. One of the biggest challenges in search is something called the long tail of search. So you've got, maybe half of your queries are kind of, the most common, let's say, million searches. And those ones are fairly easy to build an index around. But then you've got another 50% of traffic and searches that are on these just totally obscure, sometimes keywords. And in some cases, and in actually quite a few cases, it's stuff that's never even been searched before. And so trying to determine the relevance of, such a massive amount of content and with search, if you don't have quality answers for every query, people will quickly turn away and they'll end up back at, Google or DuckDuckGo, which is basically kind of a skin on Bing. Really, there's 2 to 3 search engines in the world that have actually built their own entire index. You've got Google and you've got Bing, and then out of Russia, there's another one called Yandex, and they've kind of got their own indexes. And then, the DuckDuckGos and Start Pages and all the others are essentially leveraging these other indexes because it's just such a massive challenge. Bing spent more than $5 billion building out their long tail index. So we're currently kind of at a point where we're developing this infrastructure that enables user nodes to be run from all over the world. Those are basically a layer that protects the privacy of the user and enables us to decentralize our infrastructure so that we can pay for that infrastructure in a crypto token. We're essentially trying to minimize all of our fiat outlays for the project so that essentially we can get into a position where we can be like a full DAO that doesn't really have any ties to the traditional financial world. And so it's kind of a step-by-step process, and so right now we're building up this layer of nodes that we're currently using essentially to hit all these other data sources, but in the process starting to build our own index, and then over time we start layering more and more jobs into this layer of infrastructure, and that then enables us just to become more independent over time, essentially. So it's really, I think, for the end user, you actually want it to be more or less imperceptible that they're not using, a traditional search engine like Google, which, there's a reason why they have 92% of usage. They've done a really good job from a product standpoint. So you don't want to necessarily, totally try to revamp things, but there's certainly a lot of room for innovation. And for us, it's just more about, having the community participate. We've got a system that uses these open source community packages. So basically anybody can go in to our GitHub repo, and they can download, the information that they need to build these. And then they can basically get triggered by certain keywords. So we're working on like an NFT search package right now. So if anybody's query has the word NFT in it, it will go out to OpenSea and some of the other, NFT data sources and have a dedicated NFT search UI above the regular search results. And so you can do that for like a whole bunch of different things. And we see that as really being a key competitive differentiator over time as we get those all built out by community members.
Definitely, that's really cool, and I like what you're doing with that. And it was interesting that you mentioned about the indexes there. I wasn't aware that that Duck was using the Bing index, and I think more people probably use Duck than Bing. It's one of those Internet Explorer things where it's like, why are we using Microsoft products? I don't know.
Right.
But Google, with their huge dominance and owning the Android system, it's pretty hard to compete. But I did see in the news that on Google's Android in Europe and in the UK, they're adding in Presearch as one of the default search options into the operating system. So that's pretty cool. Congratulations on that. And maybe you can talk about that achievement and what that sort of means for Presearch.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, definitely a really big win for the project, and even just blockchain in general. I would say from a mass adoption standpoint, it's one of the more mainstream and kind of larger scale wins. Something like 150 to 200 million Android installs in Europe each year. And every time that happens, it generally worked before that you just got Google by default. That was, a large part of their go-to-market strategy, and why they came out with the operating system. And it's all about getting the lock-in from all these different platforms, Gmail and YouTube and everything. And so obviously, we're always fans of free market solutions. That's really the angle that we try to come at it from. But in the EU, where they've been, maybe more so than in North America, focused on trying to, break up this, monopoly that big tech has on people's attention and on their software. And so there was a lawsuit in 2018. And the EU basically forced Google to implement this search choice screen where you would then have different search engines that you would have to make available. But when they first launched it, it was a pay for play type model. And it was super expensive. It really, didn't make sense for us or really anybody to participate. The unit economics just didn't justify it. But there was another round to this legal action, and they forced them to remove the cost. And so one of our team members, Alex, kind of took the lead on applying and moving through the process. And we got approved in July. And then on September 1st, it went live. And so now anybody who's in Europe, basically, when they're installing a new Android device or updating, they'll have this search choice screen, and yeah, Presearch is one of the options. We were, I think, one of the only ones who made it into every single country, because they do it on a country by country level. Wow. So we got really broad coverage. Yeah, so it's already been spiking our new users. We have like 5x our new users over the past week since that went live on a daily basis. So it's definitely a pretty big win.
Huge win. Great steps towards having a decentralized and fair search engine. And but as you mentioned, Google is huge, and there's still many steps to go. Maybe you can talk about looking forward. What's it going to take for the flippening, where Google is losing percentage and decentralized search engines are gaining percentage until the point when it gets above 50%.
Yeah, I mean, it's. Again, they got so much lock-in. I mean, they've locked people in just with Google accounts in general, and they've integrated Google into so many different devices and software. But I mean, ultimately, and we've got a new UI that we're releasing on our testnet on Wednesday of next week, and we actually feel like it's finally competitive with Google. It's really responsive. I mean, the results are great. Google doesn't have, for some reason, still dark mode, which is, weird. That's such a big opportunity, right? So there's definitely, UI improvements. I think where they probably their Achilles heel ultimately is, the huge revenue driver for that entity is still these really kind of basic, Google ads. They launched them in the early 2000s, and making over $100 billion a year in revenue from this one product, right? It's crazy, and so they've got to protect that, because that's what funds all their other stuff. None of their other ventures are really like the cash cow that they get from AdWords, and so there hasn't really been a lot of innovation on the UI front. And I think also we've reached a bit of a tipping point where, they're a public reporting company. Everything is based on, revenue and profit. They have to maximize the use of these ad units basically to satisfy their shareholders and fulfill their fiduciary duty. And so they've stuffed those pages with as many keywords as they possibly can that are advertising driven. And so, people at some point, don't find those results as helpful, and it kind of clutters things up. And so it's largely about, getting in front of people and being able to be on the devices that they're using. We've launched an Android app, and there's also now a home screen widget for Android users. We've got an iOS app. We're working on a desktop browser, but currently we've basically just used browser extensions to be able to be integrated into Chrome, Brave, Firefox. And so, the more that you can kind of get that initial trial basically, and then have a distribution channel where people can use whatever device they're using and kind of end up on your search engine, is really kind of the key. And so, we've got some interesting advantages. We've got the ability to incentivize people with tokens. We've got the ability to be flexible with the UI. And then really, I mean, our whole model since the beginning has been about how do we leverage big tech against itself. And, like the Android search choice thing, I mean, we're basically leveraging them against themselves. And so to a large degree, they've kind of built these channels that we can now plug into a lot more easily than if you had to build them from scratch. And so while sometimes it seems really unrealistic, oh, how are you possibly going to displace this, $1 trillion company? I can see a way that it would happen, maybe more quickly than people might think, just because, those channels are there. And if you can plug into them and hit the right notes, then you can really get rapid adoption. And so we're just kind of, figuring out all the intricacies in the model, making sure that the experience is really solid and leads to really strong user retention. And then as that kind of, gets solved, then it's about, how do you push this out in as wide a way as possible? And right now we're fortunate because, there's a lot of people looking for private search. There's just, weird stuff coming out, World Economic Forum and these guys saying like, oh, maybe we're going to start integrating your search history into your social credit profile. And like, as stuff like that happens, like you might just get these ping point moments, right? Where people are like, I'm out. So
yeah, definitely, Colin. I've read Life After Google recently, and he's a pretty old guy that wrote it, but he had some great predictions in the 80s and 90s, and he thinks Google will be gone before he is. So that's quite interesting, and we're definitely in a time of major shifts right now. I want to, we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to take a minute to look forward. You mentioned that you're working on a mainnet. I'm curious about, the updates for the rest of 2021 and what other updates you and your team have in store for major releases for Presearch.
Yeah, so first kind of thing is we're doing the new search UI, which is like a whole, it's a whole other paradigm as far as the responsiveness and just how quickly it loads and just I think the overall look and feel. So that's coming really soon. We recently started supporting on the testnet nodes Raspberry Pi. So we're actually working on a hardware device. A lot of people don't know that yet, but there's going to be a Presearch node that's coming out, and there's kind of an interesting integration. Again, nobody knows this yet, but with NFTs as well, which I think is going to be pretty exciting. And after that, we've got just kind of some, back of the house stuff. We've totally revamped like our anti-abuse system to stop people from trying to game the system to earn tokens. We've got just a much better user experience and more protection for the project that way. We're implementing a new Web3 withdrawal system. And then as we have all those things in place, then it's about starting to transition the live traffic. We've currently got more than 1 million searches a day. There's 2.3 million registered users, and we're starting to transition that traffic onto the user nodes. Right now, they're basically running on that same software, but it's being hosted centrally across a bunch of nodes that we have at data centers. And so after that happens, then we're in real go-to-market mode. And then we're also starting to look more at the keyword staking platform. And there's, so many improvements that we can make on like the ad UI side of things and really creating engaging and, unintrusive ads that people, will actually find beneficial. And so the more value that we can add to the keyword staking system, then, the more value that gets conferred into the ecosystem. So that's a lot of the focus kind of between now and the end of the year. And then beyond that, there's more decentralization. I would basically say, implementing more decentralized governance, more usage of blockchain in places where we have currently, centralized technology. So, exciting times.
Very exciting, Colin. And for the viewers that are looking to learn more about those updates and just start using Presearch right now to help with their privacy, what's the best way for them to learn more and to get involved in the communities?
Yeah, so our Telegram community is kind of our number one place. It's t.me/Presearch. And if you want to check out the service, it's currently presearch.org. That is one other thing. We're flipping to presearch.com in the next couple of months. So you can check us out there and create an account and start earning pre-tokens when you search.
Sounds great, Colin. Thanks so much for taking the time to come on. All the best with all of these amazing updates with Presearch moving forward. And let's follow up in the near future.
Sounds good. Appreciate it, Ashton. Thanks so much.